have paradigms and roadblocks that prevent us from excelling, and they can be real or imagined. Welcome to Beyond Bricks, a podcast that will give you the ability to break through those walls. Here's Dr. Nathan Unruh.
Welcome, everyone. In this conversation, we're really going to dive apart is that your environment really gives you your best chance. And I got to hear my guest today at a conference in Anaheim, California. And I had some clients there with me and says, hey, you got to go hear this guy. You got to go hear this guy. And they were hyping this guy up so much. I go, how good could this guy really be? But then I went and listened to him, and not only was he as good as they said, but even better. And I walked away from this event with pages of notes from this conversation, but he made that statement. How far you go is based upon your environment. And I think about as leaders, oh, that's so true. Our choices dictate our chances. So if we want better chances, we got to make better choices. And who I have with me today, and so buckle up, guys, because Scott Iverson's been with an organization called Watkins, a global leader in wellness. They really manufacture some of the best products. I use them myself. Hot tubs, saunas, swim spas, and many other things that maybe, Scott, you can talk about today. But Scott, welcome to this conversation.
Gosh, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's just dive in. Tell us a little bit about you. Give us your background.
Yeah, well, I'm a fortunate fellow. I raised in a small farm town in Southwest Washington, and by golly, just had great parents who we didn't have a lot of money, but we certainly had a lot of good values. And you know what? They let's put it this way: whenever there was a game, guess who was in the stands? No matter where, my folks were always there. So I grew up in a very supportive environment, man.
So tell me about your role now.
Yeah, well, what I do is I actually work with sellers across North America and some in Europe, helping them guide people towards things that can impact and improve their life. We're talking about wellness products, as you mentioned. And by the way, it's funny because we actually do call them environments that the body naturally responds to. And again, does what? Just helps you to optimize how you live.
So, in that conversation, you presented when I was in Anaheim, you talked about restore, optimize, and activate. And I loved how you did that. And then I thought, you know what? Those are three great statements for leaders too, are they not?
Yeah.
And how we lead people. So you've been around a lot of leaders, great leaders. You've had to lead a lot of people. You do a lot of training of individuals. What are some of the key attributes you see, Scott, in great leaders?
Wow. Okay. What a great question. I tell you, there are so many leaders that I've had the privilege to work with. And here's the cool part, I think. There isn't one of them that was the same. And I think the thing that stands out in all of them, though, was they had something I'd refer to as a settled heart. And a settled heart is they are very assured of what they're doing, but also why they're doing it. And I think with it, regardless of their style, came this great sense of clarity. And as they say, clarity is kindness. And when you can be around somebody that has a clear vision, man, people line up. And I think it gives us all the ability to put our best at work in that kind of environment.
So a settled heart, let me pull that apart. Now, in the good book, it says, where there is no vision, people will perish.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you develop a settled heart?
Well, you know what? I think this is an interesting question. And by the way, this is a personal side of this. I think today in society, when there's so much uncertainty and there's so much stuff spinning around us, we can be taken over by an unsettled mind. And the mind is a crazy thing because it can generate all kinds of reasons to get out or bail out. But a settled heart is where you've arrived at the place where you actually believe you're with the right people. You're in the right place. And I would love to say you're pursuing the right purpose. And inside that, a settled heart is a place where, man, instead of giving you all the reasons to bail out. It gives the strength to stay in. And I will tell you, I have been so blessed to be around people that no matter how the chips fell, it was not a question of whether this was going to be hard or whether this would be easy or whether people would be nice or not. It was, no, you know what? We know where we're going and why we're going there. And that settled heart is what allows, I think, our organization and organizations I've been around to basically outperform those that are kind of set adrift by the uncertainties that come to us in everyday life.
Yeah, it reminds me of this, Scott, that is, when we all jump on an airplane, there's a destination, right?
Yeah.
But is it usually always sunny and 70? There's turbulence along the way. The pilot may have to go higher, may have to go lower, may have to go around a storm. I think that's kind of what you described, isn't it?
It really is. I'll tell you, I think kids can teach us a lot about this. The mindset of a 4 or 5-year-old, they're very quick to trigger to the thought of that's not nice, that's not fair, or that's too hard. And all of those things will come at us every day. And the reality is, if we don't have a settled heart, we will never fight through to the things that are our bigger calling and are our bigger purpose, and candidly give us the deeper satisfaction of a life well lived, I think.
So true. Why is it, Scott, that, you just talk about 4 and 5-year-olds? Why do we lose that?
Well, I'm not so sure that we don't lose. We never lose the immaturity part of it, is what I'm afraid of.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is that. But why do we lose the wonderment and imagination that kids bring to the table? And actually, you want to talk about relentless pursuit. Kids understand relentless pursuit, don't they? At least my grandkids do.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do. And I think that's, the inside of that, looking at attributes of leaders, having that settled heart, there's some curiosity there. There's that relentless pursuit, the strong purpose. And they say that what's the length between my heart and my head is 18 inches. How do we connect that 18 inches? Because too many times we just operate out of our messy minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's reality, right? And I think that's really the thing that has been such a blessing to me, has been being around people that were able to cut past the clutter and convey a sense of deeper meaning and purpose. By the way, I think I learned as much about this as anything on an airplane ride I had about, 3 years ago. I climbed on a plane and sat down next to a fellow who was not impressively dressed. In fact, he looked worn and haggard. He smiled warmly when I sat down and wanted to kind of engage. I said, how's your day? And his response was, no habla inglés. And so right there, I go, okay, this is going to be an interesting 2.5 hours. So I grabbed the in-flight magazine, Dr. Nathan, and I grabbed the map and I said, where are you from? And he said, Colombia, Bogota. And I tell you what, for the next 2.5 hours, we engaged in this conversation that was not a conversation, but pictures, drawing, pointing, using our phones to try to show pictures of this man's journey. Turns out what he did is he walked from Bogota to San Diego. And I caught him at the end of this journey. And I got to tell you, I learned about what a settled heart is, because, by the way, anybody that's about to do something difficult will turn it down and walk away if there's not something bigger in mind. So let me give you the highlight. The highlight was this: as we showed pictures, he shared a picture where he showed a picture of his brother's grave, where his brother was murdered. And 2 rows behind me, little did I know, his brother's son was behind him. And this man was not going to let anything stop him from getting his brother's son to a better life. And I'm telling you, Dr. Nathan, this guy, as he recounted the stories through his phone and showing, by the way, the Darien Gap, if you look at this, the Darien Gap is run by cartels and all kinds of evil that takes place in this treacherous jungle crossing into Panama that would just make your head spin. But the reality is, you don't give up when you're living with the bigger picture in mind. Look, not only the guy with a settled heart, he's going to do this, but he's living an epic love story. I got a picture from this guy when he finished his journey that night, where he met his family in New Orleans. And I'm going to tell you something. You want to see a peaceful look on someone's face who'd been in journey for, I think it was over 75 days this journey took. And I'm telling you, that's the kind of tenacity that a settled heart gives someone.
What a story. Okay, how do you get people to see that?
You know, it's funny
because you get to train a lot of people. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you get to train a lot of people, right? You've been around a lot of people.
Yep.
How do you activate, if you will, that switch?
You know what? It's so interesting, and that's the perfect question, and yet the very difficult task, because I think what happens is one of the things we've done in our training now is, before we get started, I challenge people with this thought. Look, there's a million things you could be doing. There's a million places you could be. But my question to you is, are you really here? And when I say you're really here, my question stems from this. Do you believe that you are in the right place, with the right people, with the right purpose? Because if you're not, let's go. I mean, go. But here's the fact, and I've seen this so many times, the switch that flips when people have great success is when their heart is so settled that, no, I'm in the right place. I'm with the right people. I'm pursuing the right purpose. Let's go. And all the crud falls away. Look, what this fellow Andre shared with me by way of sign language. 5 people started this journey with him and only 2 finished, him and his nephew. And I'll tell you why. Because there's way too many things that's going to derail any plan. He had no idea the obstacles he was going to have to overcome. And the fact is, neither do we. But the only chance we have to finish and finish well is when we're in that place where, and you think about this for your family. You think about this with your faith. Think about this in your relationships with your friends. Without this in place, nothing finishes well.
Brilliant. Beautiful. How do you develop that environment?
Yeah.
What are things that we can do? People that are aspiring to be better leaders. People that would say they're good leaders but want to get better, that are looking for that next level of leadership. What are things in our environment, tactical things that we can do to help us create that environment of a settled heart?
Yeah. Boy, that's the question. I would say that the very first part of any environment that produces positive results has to be the conversation we have with ourselves before anyone enters that environment with us. I talked to a friend the other day, and he said, he's a British chap, and he says, Scott, I figured it out. And he's in retail sales. And he says, what I focus on is, what do I want the customers to say when they're sitting in their car and they're leaving? And by the way, this is about creating the right environment, because you know what? I'm in control of what they say when they leave. And by the way, I am also in control of what people say when they're in my environment long before they enter that environment. So here's the great philosopher, Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And that's the problem with most environments. They're reactive. And I want to give you something. And by the way, I just wish people knew so much. Look, you're listening to a guy that's had issues with insecurity, issues with, working way too hard to try to please others. And you know what the reality is? My sweet wife has helped me so much. You know what we say to each other? We say, look, I got nothing to prove. I got nothing to gain. I've got nothing to hide and I've got nothing to lose. Let's go love some people.
Hmm.
If you want to create an environment that completely changes the way people respond in it, I believe there's a story for you. I get the privilege to speak to groups around the country. And one of the things that changed for me dramatically was after hearing this story of two speakers that were seated at front of an auditorium. And the first speaker, young and really an up and comer, and he turned to the legend and says, I got to ask you, what do you think about before you go on stage? I mean, what is running through your mind? And the sage wise one turns and says, I'm curious, why do you ask? And what goes through your mind? And this young man said, well, I'm thinking about the key points I want to make. I'm thinking about the things I want to finish with and how I can really move them. And he realized at that point, maybe that wasn't necessarily the best. And he looked at this gentleman and said, what do you think about? And his response, I think, is what changes environments. And that's this. He says, I really just think about one thing. Do I love these people? Because that is the difference. And they can tell that when they walk in the room. Mm-hmm. Can I share a quick story? You want to meet leaders? I think most of us are blind to some of the greatest leaders, because you know what? It's like this. When we look at a photo, our eyes go directly to us first. What if we looked at other people and saw what's truly around us? I will tell you a quick story. I'm living a sales master's class every day of my life. My father-in-law is 92. He lives with us. What a gem of a man. He's an academic dean for a small Christian liberal arts school in Santa Barbara, California, Westmont. And my wife, she said, honey, you want to know one of the greatest memories I have of my dad? A very busy man, a man that's running a university. She said, Scott, when I would walk into his office, he would set everything down and he would look at me and I would have his full attention. And she said, you know what, Scott, I didn't know what that really meant until after I became a parent. That's what leaders do. Leaders are ones that get over themselves so they can see beyond themselves. Mm. And that's exactly how this man still lives to this day.
Yeah, brilliant. Westmont's a great place.
Oh my goodness. Up in the hills of Montecito. It's very civilized.
Yeah. Wow. What a great lesson. So true. How do we see others? How do we develop that settled heart, creating that right environment? How do we love people more? So many good nuggets there. So as you look at all the people you've been around, and even as you've navigated through your life, what kind of routines do leaders have that helps them create this settled heart, or gives them a better chance to create this settled heart? So what I heard there, just like as you described your father-in-law, he's got a routine. He's conditioned himself to be intentional to listen. That would be a routine, part of a routine, right?
Yep.
So what are the things? What kind of routines?
You know, I'll tell you a routine, and I don't know how this will go over, but I will tell you this. The greatest routine I've ever observed lived is a routine of two things: a routine of kindness and truth. And by the way, it's something anyone can do. And kindness is rooted in the idea, the simple practice of seeing others before we jump to our story. Isn't it funny how our natural bent is to want to jump in with our impressive statements, when in reality, our bigger purpose is to engage others and to let them live a bigger purpose. And that doesn't happen. Look, it's hard to get buy-in without weigh-in. Would you agree with that?
Oh.
And one of the things that we face on a daily basis is anxious to tell my story, when in reality, it's their story that brings value. So that's part of kindness. And this whole thing of truth, I want to anchor this back to something that I know you build in your environments and you coach people on, this area of trust. I'll tell you a quick story. My daughter, Kelly, is an adventure guide, whitewater, you name it, she's done it. But one of the elements that she loves is climbing. And she took me to a climbing gym once, and she set before me a group of milk crates, just milk crates. And the idea was, Dad, I want you to stack these milk crates and then stand on the first one and then grab the second and stack it and stand on it without leaving the milk crate, and then stack the next and stand on it. And by the way, I'm standing on a pile of gravel. I feel like I am wobbling as I get my second milk crate down and then my third. And by the way, when you get to your fourth, you're thinking, I could really hurt myself, right? And she goes, okay, Dad, I'm not going to let you go any farther because I'm still on your insurance and I don't want it to get canceled. so the next thing she goes, okay, now I'm going to hook a rope to you. And Dr. Nathan, this changed my perspective forever. I flew past the fourth crate. I went to the fifth, to the sixth, to the seventh. I got to the ninth crate and stood on top of it like a statue, my man, with giving no thought of what was below me, only focused on what was above me and what was the difference. I had a rope around me held by someone I fully trust. And I got to tell you, that changed my view on leadership. And by the way, look, ropes don't stop you from falling, brother. But what they do is they take the shock of the fall away, and they help ease the fall, and they give you the ability to not focus what's below you, but focus on what's in front of you or beyond you. And that's what great leaders do through this element of truth. Hey, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to tell it to you unkindly, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Because you know why? We see a bigger picture. We have a bigger purpose. And guess what? We're going there together. But guess who's going to be on top? Not me. You. I've never met a leader. I've never met a leader that people wanted to follow, that wanted to be the one on top. I've only met leaders that excel in this world, that believe in others. And you know what? If you want to be just root honest on stuff, none of us are self-made. We're all the benefactors of people, Dr. Nathan, that believed in us, that gave to us. One of the best exercises I did, a friend of mine challenged me, who are the 50 most influential people in your life? And by the way, I had no problem. I had no problem identifying 50 people who gave me that lift, who were my rope. And you know what? Here's the next best part of that. You want to be a great leader? You become a great leader by identifying and thanking other leaders. Because in that process, you develop these relationships, you relate these bonds that unify teams and unify others. And by the way, some of the best leaders I've ever met, they've never had the title. More has always been caught than taught, right? Observation of someone who's living on purpose.
Yeah, what a great story. And I mean, agree with you so much. Leadership's not about a title. You know? Reminds me, you got a great story, Scott. I mean, so good. But you know, as I think about leadership and not being a title, more is caught than taught. Wasn't Jesus the best example when he walked in the room with the 12 disciples and he took a towel and he washed their feet? It was never about the title, it was about the towel. Seeing others. And so you're saying this, and here again, guys, this isn't a scripted conversation with Scott and I. And when he says see others, I go and I pick up this little bracelet on my desk. You see what that says? See others. Yeah. This is my son. He came up with that. And you just solidify it even more. And I know I fall short on this at times where I'm not seeing others as much as I could. I'm not listening the way that I should. Developing that trust and being the rope that holds people up when they fall versus sometimes having that rope around their neck.
And we wonder why people are not fully engaged. Yes. And you know what? The reality is, to your point, where is that rope? Is it around their neck, fear tactic, or is it around their waist? And by the way, is the climber truly climbing something that they have a settled heart about? I love this in the wellness industry. I work with truly remarkable human beings who could do anything, but they choose to impact positively people's lives. And you know what? I'm in the process right now of writing probably over 120 letters to the people who are our absolute gold standard, amazing performers. And you know what? As I was writing a handful of those letters today, I can't think of one of them that isn't absolutely settled. This is the right place. These are the right people. This is the right purpose. Let's go. And you know what? They're outperforming double and even triple of what great performers are doing. You know why? Because the mind is a terrible thing, my friend. It'll create a storm that'll take your oars out of the water, and you'll be victim to something that right now, by the way, uncertainty that causes the most deadly thing for anyone. It's called drift, because the current will pull you backwards, sideways. But a settled heart, it keeps your legs churning, man. Your head may be confused what to do, but your legs, when your heart is solid and clear, you just keep churning. Mm-hmm. And your distance is doubled while everyone else is floating backwards. And you know that.
So how do you keep from the drift? Because the drift is there. It's alive and well, right? So what do you do daily that helps you keep from becoming a victim of the drift? What do you consume? What do you put around you? Yep. Again, going back to how we started this conversation in environment. Yeah. What are things?
Well, you probably wouldn't be surprised at this, but I start every morning at dark 30 in my hot tub outside with quiet time with the Lord. And you know what? Those conversations are critical to my life and to my wellness, because the truth is, my perspective is often not his. And you know what? I think to so many things we navigate through. Look, my wife and I were so blessed. We just got back from Cambodia and from Vietnam through our company. And I'm telling you what, most of the things we get all tied up about are not real issues. Talk to somebody in Cambodia, right? Yeah. And the fact is, if we can't clear away the clutter of the day to spend time with our Savior, Lord, and Maker first, it's gonna be a day that's full of plenty of crud. The question is, how will you go through it?
Yeah, and that goes back to your story of that gentleman from Colombia, right? He was focused on the right purpose. And to seek that purpose daily, Lord, how do you help me see others? How do you help me before I step on the stage of life? Do I love these people or not?
Yep. And look, and you nailed it. What's your son's bracelet? See others. Isn't it funny? I hate to be so simple, but I'm just a simple guy. I think my job is to love God and to love people in real time. And by the way, what that means is different for perhaps some, but for me, that means right here, right now. Mm-hmm. And to follow the lead of my father-in-law of to set aside and with the mindset that I've already remembered. I got nothing to prove. I got nothing to hide. I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to gain. In fact, one of the things I also say to myself on a daily basis, ain't nobody going to out-listen me today. You know, the fact about listening, and this is what really unsettled me about this, is 90% of people, while a conversation is going on, Dr. Nathan, and you know this, 45% are thinking, what will I ask them next? 45% are thinking, what will I tell them next? While only 10% are actually fully present. And you know, boy, you talk about the Lord Jesus Christ taking the towel. He was so present with his disciples. And boy, weren't they projects? Holy cow. I'm that project too. And I'm so glad that the way that he does, his attention to us is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. Taking that time to listen more, to connect. So many great nuggets. And you know, I think that, as you say, simple. We have a tendency as human beings to make things more complex than they need to be. Brilliance takes place in brevity. I think that, you know, somebody told me one time that Nathan, a great educator takes the simple and makes it complex. A great communicator takes the complex and makes it simple.
Mm,
And I'm always challenging my day, Nathan, keep it simple.
yeah.
And in this conversation, there's so many great nuggets, and your stories are so powerful that come out of this and just go and reflect and think, how can I do these things better? See others. Do I love them? And all those things help to create that settled heart. And Scott, I've never heard that before. Of all the leadership books I've read and conversations I've had, this concept of a settled heart is powerful.
Can I tell you something? I probably get in trouble on things. I spoke with, by the way, our company. I just have such admiration for our company here because they invest so much. And I spoke with a member of our people services team, and I shared this concept. And I think the truth is, there are so many people right now who are partially in, meaning this: I could do this, I could do that. Yeah, I'm doing this and I'm moving up the ladder. But I will tell you this: I will take a team any day with lesser talent, but of a complete settled heart every day, because they will win the battle and the war. And I just challenge people to think about this. If you're not sure whether your heart is settled, here's the thing: could you right now say this? The people I work with are not perfect, but am I willing to buckle in and say, these are the people I want to be with? Am I willing to say that this is the place I really want to put my name to? Am I willing to say that this purpose, this grander purpose, is something that I feel fulfillment in and I see value in? If you can, for the next 18 months, I want to challenge you. Drop every thought, every intruding thought that says, I could, I might, I should be somewhere else, and say, I'm going all in. I'm going to tell you, the freedom, Dr. Nathan, that comes when people have that settledness of heart. And by the way, guess what happens to the mind? It quiets automatically. Because many of those crazy thoughts of distraction come from an unsettled heart. Instead, it now is filled with creativity and power. As my friend says, there's the head, there's the heart, and there's the hands. When the heart is right, the head can get clear, so the hands can do. And my friend, isn't that what we want? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's not about title, it's not about prizes and accomplishments. It's about, was I faithful with what the Lord gave me to do? And that can only happen with a settled heart.
So good, man. So good. So there's your challenge, ladies and gentlemen. Scott just gave it to you. That's a challenge for me to reflect on those thoughts. He gave us so many great nuggets today. This is something you got to go back and you got to listen to more than once, because there's so much wisdom there. And if we do these things, boy, we can have such a bigger impact. Scott, this has been a delight. Thank you so much.
I'm really grateful for having the chance. Thanks, my friend.
Yeah.
We all have paradigms and roadblocks that prevent us from excelling, and they can be real or imagined. Welcome to Beyond Bricks, a podcast that will give you the ability to break through those walls. Here's Dr. Nathan Unruh.